All right, if we look at the Fool's journey or the hero's journey, if at the grid, the High Priestess sits along the first row, Justice sits along the middle row, and is the middle stage of the journey of the major arcanas. And Justice and High Priestess also look very similar in appearance. They have the two pillars, the veil, both have to do with the truth. I see the High Priestess holding the energy of the inner truth and Justice dealing with the outer truth. There is a lot of overlay between them. And then Judgment sits on the bottom row, the row of wisdom, where everyone is nearly naked and showing their humbleness and vulnerability. I want to share how I connect with these three cards, how my life reflects the energy of these cards and how they're still playing out in my life right now, and I bet also in yours. When I started to really delve into numerology, tarot and astrology in the early 1990s, my life all of a sudden started to make sense to me. It was like I came home and found my tribe. I understood the energy of Pisces, and I got why I connected with and felt so strongly about worldly issues. I'm definitely one of those people you call a big picture person. I moved myself towards the jobs and positions that I knew were better suited for me. And then I really got into traction and into action. And this is one of the reasons why I call my business name Tarot in Action. It's not just good enough knowing about the information, it's getting into action. This is where all the magic happens. Tarot, astrology, and numerology gave my life meaning and purpose. They gave me that pathway to understand things in my life. I'm so grateful for these modalities. I also love that I can keep studying and learning and growing from them still today. It's a huge rabbit hole down there, right? And I feel so lucky that I can get answers and understand why things happen the way they do. For example, during my divorce, I clung to the tarot to help me through it. I remember I kept turning over the Nine of Pentacles. That card meant a lot for me at that time. Today, I have many clients and students turning to tarot. Many seem to be at that crossroads in their life and looking for answers. Many have said, I've heard many say, well, my marriage didn't work. What else is there? What am I missing? My job is not satisfying. What is the thing that I'm meant to be doing? Where and what is my passion? What is my purpose? I know all these questions. I once asked them myself, and I bet many of you did too. And when my students complete the tarot course, their life is totally different at the end of the course from when they first started. I often say I'm the lucky one because I get to see their eyes open up like a veil lifting, which is that connection with the High Priestess energy time, and then seeing things become clear for themselves, maybe for the first time ever, which is that nice connection again with the Justice card. Clarity and the truth out there in the world. Okay, High Priestess. Let's look at the High Priestess. So the High Priestess sits there with the Torah on her lap. This is her Hebrew book of knowledge representing her inner wisdom. This is her manual that she refers to. The High Priestess for me represents my learning stage, still in the unconscious energy. In alchemy, this is known as the Negredo stage, still being in the dark, still being in the unconscious. When I studied my tarot, astrology, and numerology, when I started my journey with tarot, astrology, and numerology, there was no access to Google. It was all workshops and reading books, hanging around people that knew about this knowledge, connecting with mentors. I absorbed all I could that I was going to assist me to grow and learn. Whatever I could afford, I did. Around 1990, this was a huge transformational time in my life. Yes, it was my 30s and experiencing a huge Saturn return, as one does. I was still married at the time, and we just found out we couldn't have a baby of our own. My husband had complications. So I ended up leaving my job at Telecom, known as Telstra today, after working there for about 8 years. I worked myself up to a manager of an admin. Prior to leaving, I did the Werner Erhardt EST training, Money and You, and the Landmark workshops. I'm sure many of you have heard of these courses. They are sensational workshops. I recommend you do them. After I left Telecom, I got involved with a volunteer organisation called the Genie Foundation, of which I'm a trustee of still today. I also started working for an umbrella organisation called Before It's Too Late. They supported children's charities like Big Brother, Big Sister, Alma Pool, Lighthouse Foundation. Funny enough, I created system manuals for them. You see, I learnt about system manuals from working at Telecom, and I understood how important system manuals really are. They stabilise a vague idea. And also, if you don't have a manual or that rules book, people tend to make up their own rules. And when things go wrong, people blame other people. So all the skills I acquired from my manager admin days, I still use today. You can see in the picture, my little office there. I used to work on the 18th floor of the head office in Telecom head office in William Street, overlooking the whole of the bay. Fabulous views. Telecom back then was the biggest company in Australia. It employed 95,000 people. Incredible. And there were no computers back then, but each branch had a typing pool. When I left Telecom, I became so consumed with learning tarot, astrology and numerology, meditation and Reiki. Something had awoken in me, and I turned all my energy into learning as much as I could in the area of the occult and this inner world. I was already collecting books, as you do, on palm reading, astral traveling, rituals with the moon, and the more you seek, the more you find. Ultimately, I found the Chiron Center, and the rest is history. I studied astrology there for 7 years. I only needed to do my diploma in 4 years, but I wanted to keep connecting with my tribe. And during those 7 years, I also did tarot classes with Anne Schotter and the Kabbalah with Evelyn Joff. Next thing you know, I started working, doing tarot readings in a fairy shop in Nidri. I was so passionate about tarot, astrology and numerology, people started to ask, teach me, teach me. So I started. This was the beginning of my new stage in my life. I knew I wanted to make a difference in the world, and this also pleased that Piscean universal energy within me. So you see, I reckon the High Priestess energy is holding a system manual, the rules book. And I was great at setting up businesses, creating system manuals and manifesting my ideas in the real world. And you can see my little system manual there for my business. I still had to bring in an income to support myself in the early days. I wasn't making as much as I did when I was at Telecom. And I knew I was still at the beginning of my tarot journey as well. So, but I studied as much as I could. I knew studying was paramount. I knew learning and education would create that income, build it, and they will come, as they say. So the High Priestess knows the ending. She understands the outcome, and she knows there is a process that needs to happen. Remember, she wrote the system manual, but it's all this underground preparation work, which now moves us into the Justice card, which is about the outer law, truth and justice in society. And this is that halfway mark through the hero's journey. So now we begin to wake up and claim back our power. The pillars are now grey in colour, which is the union of the black and the white pillars from the High Priestess. And the grey colour represents the wisdom and the knowledge. Now in the middle stage. In alchemy, this is called the albedo stage, which is that connection to that superconscious and that waking up energy. Justice for me was when I divorced and I went through my settlement years. It took 2 years to complete this process. I was in a transition stage of changing my life. I also had to become responsible for myself. This was when I had the discussion with Great Spirit, and I knew I had to clean up my act. So I really got to use that sword very well. I could feel the change happening within me. The High Priestess was still dormant, gathering the knowledge, reading, learning, and doing all the workshops. With Justice, it was time to make the move, to get the paperwork in order, creating the mental checklists, drawing on the plans and how the whole new me was going to look. I was working on my new system manual for my life and the vision board, getting the brand, the logo, the colours just right. Also during this settlement period, I was given a spiritual name, which was Rudy. And people started to call me Roo. Rudy comes from the bird Garuda, the male bird that carried Vishnu around on his back, his vehicle, and he also is a symbol of courage. And I could see that masculine side of me starting to come out while using this new name, like the goddess Athena that rules the Justice card. I was feeling her power. I also started to play drums. I was in the band. We did really well, actually. We had 4 gigs a week. And this was also the time I started the Taekwondo lessons. And it was like a pendulum totally swung the other way. I went from this married woman of 20 years to this powerhouse martial artist. And I knew this was way off balance for me. So then when the time came to legally change my name from my married name to my new name, I chose Roo Anna and put the Roo and the Anna together, and I recreated myself. And this felt right. I still had the old me in there, but incorporated the new me as well. I felt more integrated. This is the black and the white colors coming together of the pillars as well. It took a while for me to balance justice in my world, but I got there. I went from one extreme to the other, but until I could find that middle ground for myself. I also just want to touch on the goddess Mutt, who rules the Justice card as well. The scales in the Justice card are held in her left hand, the feminine instinctual side, and the scales represents balance and fairness. In other tarot cards, the scales may hold a feather in one and a heart in the other. This connects us to the goddess Mutt. Goddess Mutt weighed the hearts of the dead. If the deeds were true and just, their hearts would outweigh the feather. They would then rise and Osiris would welcome them with open arms. If their hearts were full of wicked deeds, the scales would tip up and their souls would be fed to Amit. It's a shame we don't get to see the heart and the feather in the Rider-Waite deck. But here are 3 tarot cards that do show the heart and the feather. In the Spiral Tarot, you can see the heart and the feather in the scales. In the Witch's Tarot by Alan Cannon Reid, she shows the heart and the feather there again. And in the Eileen Connolly Tarot, you can see the feather is falling down. Once again, keeping the balance is the aim here. Just like the High Priestess card, but not just on the inner level. Now I was dealing with my life on my own. I was all alone in the outer world after 20 years of marriage. I don't have siblings and my folks have strong Italian Catholic beliefs. It was very confronting to be on my own in the world, trying to balance my new life with my folks and my newfound tarot career path that I chose for myself. Somehow I managed through. I think integrity is a huge part of it. Being true to oneself. People know if you're telling the truth. Truth is a huge part of the Justice Tarot card. Standing in your truth, your integrity, and being responsible for yourself. By now, I was set up with my tarot shop in Moonee Ponds, paid for all the legalities that goes along with that, insurance, marketing, paperwork, but I still was not making enough to cover everything. So I did find myself a job working for the Rotary, the Preston Rotary Club and the Melbourne Lions Club as well. These projects were all about raising funds for sick children and supporting their families. So I was still looking after others, and this made me happy. And this also allowed me to cover all my expenses. Today, because of social media, most marketing is free. Back then, you had to pay for everything. I remember I used to pay the Living Now magazine $30 a month for how many years, and that was just one of my marketing commitments. I really started to put myself out there now, and it's still a work in progress. Business was growing, hens parties, etc. I'm also a Reiki master by now. Also, I went back to the Mind, Body and Spirit festivals, but took it to the next level, traveling all around Australia and starting to make friends worldwide, Australia-wide.